You're listening to the Voice of Your Brand podcast. In today's episode, we're talking all about feeling the sale, the power of emotional connection in selling. That's coming up next.
Ready to go behind the scenes and learn what it really takes to stand out as the voice of your brand? I'm Katherine Beck, voice actor and voice coach. And after 20 years of being the voice of other brands, I'm here to show you how your voice is your most powerful tool to creating the impact, influence, and income you desire. The world is your global stage, so get ready to up-level your voice and your personal brand. This is the Voice of Your Brand podcast.
Before we jump into today's episode, there's two things I'm really excited to share with you. One, I'm going to be hosting a free training on becoming the visionary voice, which is where I'm going to be walking you through how to sound like an authority. You already are the expert, the authority in what you do, but now we're going to get you sounding like the authority, making a bigger impact and emotionally connecting to your audience and selling with ease. You're going to see just how powerful your voice is to growing your audience, improving your sales and your conversions, and sounding like the authority and the expert you know you are. If that is you and you are ready to sound like the authority that you already are, then I invite you to join me for my masterclass. Head over to katherinebeck.com/masterclass to sign up. I, of course, will pop that in the show notes. And I want to make this as interactive as we can because I want this to be more of a conversation. And I want to hear your voice because this is all about understanding how your audience perceives you and your voice. And so I want to hear your voice. And if you want to work with me, I'm going to be taking some volunteers. Make sure you let us know. So first step is register, and then you're going to let us know if you want to be a volunteer and get to work together. Okay. Let's get into today's episode, Feeling the Sale. The power of emotional connection in selling and marketing. And the one thing I really want you to get out of today's podcast episode is that it does not matter what you do, you are selling all the time. If you are a personal brand, you're selling all the time. If you're an online expert, you are selling all the time. When you create content online, you're selling. When you're communicating in a conversation, you are selling. When you're presenting an offer, you are definitely selling. But here's the mistake I see so many experts making by thinking that the sale happens when you ask for something like buy my product or join my program or work with me one-to-one. You're selling the wrong thing. We are selling the feeling your product, your program, or your service gives your audience. I'm going to say that again. You are selling the feeling your product, your program, or your service gives your audience. And that's because when someone is making a decision, yes, of course, they need to hear the logic. They need to know what's included, what they're getting, why they're buying or investing. They need all of that, of course, to make a logical decision. But there's also the emotional decision. So when someone's thinking about buying something, first they need the logic. But then what ultimately gets them over the line is the emotion from a feeling that you made them feel. And when they get that feeling, that evokes a thought, a decision, a choice. Whether or not you are their person that they trust and they want to work with and buy from, and they say, okay, I'm in, let's go, let's do this. Or they say, you know what, now's not the right time. And as we talk about this, I want you to think about a time where you invested in something big. It could have been a home, it could have been a car, it could have been a program online that was a really big investment. How did you feel when you made that investment? What was that feeling you felt? I'll give you a couple of examples. I wanted to learn how to create an online course, and I found this guy on the internet, and I followed him for, probably a year. And I got his emails and I listened to his podcast and I really liked the things that he said. He seemed like a real easygoing, fun guy. And because I never invested in an online course before, I was really hesitant, I was nervous, and I really needed to know, like, and trust the guy before I was ready to invest. And so it took me quite some time to get there, but eventually I got there. But I always really had this great feeling that this guy was somebody I would enjoy learning from. I just got a good feeling about him. And ultimately, I invested. But there's been other people where I've been told their programs are great, their courses are great, and I cannot listen to the sound of their voice. So instead of investing in their programs, even though they may help me out, I've decided not to because I can't listen to their voice. And I've actually heard that from other people as well who have said, the same exact thing about a person that they know is really knowledgeable and has a lot of information and could really help them out, but they just can't stand the sound of their voice. Or it might not be the actual sound of their voice, but it's the delivery. I remember another time where I invested in an online program and it was significantly way more than that first program I had invested in. And I invested within 4 days of knowing the guy. And that was partly because his program sounded amazing, but the other part was because I really connected with him. I resonated with him. I felt comfortable and inspired by what he had to say. And I believed that it was possible for me, that his program was the right program to help me out. He truly made it feel like it was possible. But I guarantee you, if he didn't get me to feel that possibility, that level of comfort and the inspiration, I definitely would not have invested. Definitely not after 4 days, that's for sure. And I was really surprised that within 4 days of finding out about this person, I was investing with really not knowing much about them. And that's because they sold the feeling. They sold a feeling of inspiration and comfort and hope and possibility. There have been so many times I've listened to launches and webinars and events where I couldn't make it to the end of the webinar, for example, because the speaker did not keep my attention. Have you ever noticed that? Where somebody's talking and they're just not keeping your attention and you actually decide to turn off the webinar? Or that could be you. Because so many times I hear online experts say that they talk fast because they want to keep the attention of their audience. Have you ever heard yourself say that? You feel like you need to talk fast because you want to keep the attention of your audience. And maybe you're afraid that if you slow down, people won't listen. But how can they listen if you're talking so fast? How can they retain the information if you're talking fast? How can you create an impact if you're talking so fast? And how can you keep your audience's attention if you're in your head? How many times have you noticed that you're in your head and you're thinking about what's the next thing I'm going to say? Or, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. Or what are they going to think how I deliver this information? Or, oh my goodness, I'm about to sell. See, when we're in our head and we're thinking these thoughts, we've disconnected. There's no connection there because you're thinking about the words, you're reading your slides, you're reading your notes, just so you can stay on track and get it over and done with. You just want to get the presentation done so you don't forget anything. But for the listener, that's disengagement. That's where we lose that connection and that desire to work with you. And that's where we start leaning towards the logic and not the emotion. And so if we're listening with a logical ear and we don't have that emotional impact, well, chances are that could be why you're having difficulty improving your conversions. Like, let's say you want to improve your conversions, you want to get your conversions higher. That could be why. So instead, what we want to do is we want to create an emotional connection. Connection leads to conversions. You want to make your audience feel a certain way. Think about, how do you want your audience to feel when you talk about the problem that they're in? How do you want them to feel? Then how do you want them to feel when you talk about the solution? How do you want them to feel when you talk about your product, program, or service being their solution? And how do you want them to feel about you? Now, when you look at big brands, they're selling the feeling all the time. That's what they do. They don't sell the product. They sell the feeling. Look at Apple. Look at Nike. Look at Louis Vuitton. All these products are selling a feeling. So I want you to ask yourself this. What feeling are you selling? What feeling is your product, your program, or your service selling? Start there. And it's going to open up the doors to your audience wanting to get to know you better and wanting to work with you. So your audience needs to hear the feeling behind your product. And your voice has so much power where it can easily grow your audience. It can easily grow your income just with a simple tweak. You may not be that far behind. You may be really close. But ultimately, there's some sort of invisible barrier between you and your audience where it's just not fully resonating. So what we want to do is we want to go from speaking with logic to selling the feeling. You want to go from speaking with logic to selling the feeling. And we're going to be working on this in my free masterclass. And that's why I would love to invite you to join me because I'm going to be taking volunteers. So if you want to work with me or you want to jump on and do the free training with me and get a feel for how I work, then I invite you to sign up for the free masterclass. Head over to katherinebeck.com/masterclass, and I look forward to seeing you there. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in today, and I look forward to seeing you back here next time on the Voice of Your Brand podcast. See you then.